So we're looking at the distance and midpoint formulas. Think back to ordered pairs. We're going to be using ordered pairs a lot to apply our radicals. So given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, the midpoint between those 2 points is going to be x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. Evaluating our points into that formula is going to help us find the point exactly in between the two. Now, to find the distance in between those 2 points, this one's a little more involved. The distance is equal to the square root of the difference of x's, so x2 minus x1 squared, plus the difference of y's, y2 minus y1 squared. So our midpoint, x1 plus x2 over 2, and y1 plus y2 over 2. And the distance, the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. So when we're finding both the midpoint and the distance between 2 points, let's start with the midpoint. So we have 4 comma 8 and negative 3 comma negative 6. So for our x's, we take 4 plus negative 3 over 2, and then 8 plus negative 6 over 2. So 4 plus negative 3, that's 1 over 2. 8 plus negative 6, that's 2 over 2, also known as 1. So this point, 1/2 comma 1, is the midpoint between those 2 points. Let's look at the distance between that. We're going to say that the distance is equal to the square root of our difference of x's, x2 minus x1, so negative 3 minus 4 squared, plus our difference of y's, so y2, negative 6 minus 8 squared. So that's going to be the square root of negative 3 minus 4, that's negative 7 squared, plus negative 6 minus 8, that's negative 14 squared. So keep going, we have the square root of 49 plus the square root of 196. Sorry, the square root of 49 plus 196. 49 plus 196, it turns out is 245. So we have the square root of 245. Let's see, 245, when we divide by 5, we get 5 and 49. 49 is 7 and 7. So we get that the distance between these 2 points is 7 times the square root of 5. Alright, so we plugged it in. We had the difference of x's squared plus the difference of y's squared onto the square root. We simplified our square root as far as we could go and found that the distance was 7 times the square root of 5. Let's do a couple more examples. So if we have 6, negative 2, and 12, 8. Let's first do our midpoint. So we have our x's, 6 plus 12 over 2, divided by our y's, negative 2 plus 8 over 2. So 6 plus 12, we have 18, divided by 2, we have 9. Negative 2 plus 8, that turns out is 6, divided by 2, 3. So there's our midpoint. Let's look at our distance. So we have our difference of x's, so let's say 12 minus 6 squared, plus our difference of y's, 8 minus negative 2 squared. So we know that the distance is equal to, we have 6 squared plus 10 squared. So the distance is equal to 36 plus 100. The square root of that, so it's the square root of 136. Let's see, 136 we can divide by 4 and be left with 34. 4 is 2 and 2. 34 is 2 and 17, which doesn't really matter. So the distance between those 2 points is 2 times the square root of 34. Let's do one last example, why not? So we have 7, 4, and 7, negative 3. So looking at our x's, we have 7 plus 7 over 2, comma 4 plus negative 3 over 2. 7 plus 7 is 14, divided by 2, that's 7. 4 plus negative 3. That is 1 divided by 2. That's 1/2. So the midpoint is 7 1/2. Do you notice that the x's were the same? So the x of the midpoint is also going to be the same. Now our distance, we have the difference of x's, so 7 minus 7 squared, plus our difference of y's, 4 minus negative 3 squared. 7 minus 7 is 0 squared, plus 4 plus 3 squared, that's 7 squared. So we have the square root of 0 plus 49. So the square root of 49, well, that turns out to be 7. So the distance between these 2 points is 7. If you think about it, the x's are the same. So the x's are the same. They have the same x. On our graph, they have the same x. So if one's up here at 4 and one's at negative 3, the distance is just the difference of the y values at 7. Looking at our practice problems, we are on the distance and midpoint formula practice worksheet found on the website. We're finding the midpoint and the distance between these 2 points. So negative 2 comma 0, 1 comma negative 3. If we look at the distance, negative 2 plus 1, midpoint divided by 2 over 0 plus negative 3 over 2. So negative 2 plus 1, that's negative 1 over 2, negative 1/2. Negative 3 halves is our y. There's our midpoint right there. Now for our distance, we have the square root of the difference of x's. So I'm going to say 1 minus negative 2 squared plus the difference of x's, negative 3 minus 0 squared. So I have the square root of 3 squared plus the square root of negative 3 squared. So we have 9 plus 9. So the square root of 18, which is 9 times 2. 9 is 3 and 3. So that means our distance is 3 times the square root of 2. All right? Lots of just arithmetic and computation and crunching numbers. So really make sure that you have these formulas, all right? That the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2, and that's written as a point. The midpoint is a point in between the two. And that the distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Make sure you have these two formulas and you're going to rule the game. Good luck.